The complete works of Swami Vivekananda. The study of Sankhya, Part 2. Take an individual man. He has first a part of an undifferentiated nature in him, and that material nature in him becomes unchanged, changed into this Mahat, a small particle of this universal intelligence. And this particle of universal intelligence in him becomes changed into egoism, and then into the sense organs and the fine particles of matter, which combine and manufacture his body. I want this to be clear because it is the stepping stone to Sankhya, and it is absolutely necessary for you to understand it, because this is the basis of the philosophy of the whole world. There is no philosophy in the world that is not indebted to Kapila. Pythagoras came to India and studied this philosophy, and that was the beginning of the philosophy of the Greeks. Later, it formed the Alexandrian school, and still later, the Gnostic. It became divided into two. One part went to Europe and Alexandria, and the other remained in India. And out of this, the system of Vyasa was developed. The Sankhya philosophy of Kapila was the first rational system that the world ever saw. Every metaphysician in the world must pay homage to him. I want to impress on your mind that we are bound to listen to him as the great father of philosophy. This wonderful man, the most ancient of philosophers, is mentioned even in the Shruti. O Lord, thou who produced the sage Kapila in the beginning, how wonderful his perceptions were! And if there were any proof required of the extraordinary power of the perception of yogis, such men are the proof. They had no microscopes or telescopes, yet how fine their perception was, how perfect and wonderful their analysis of things. I will here point out that the difference between Schopenhauer and the Indian philosophy. Schopenhauer says that desire or will is the cause of everything. It is the will to exist that makes us manifest, but we deny this. The will is identical with the motor nerves. When I see an object, there is no will. When its sensations are carried to the brain, there comes the reaction, which says, do this or do not do this. And this state of the ego substance is what is called will. There cannot be a single particle of will which is not a reaction. So many things precede will. It is only a manufactured something out of the ego, and the ego is a manufacture of something still higher, the intelligence. And that again is a modification of the indiscrete nature. That was the Buddhist idea, that whatever we see is the will. It is psychologically entirely wrong because it can only be identified with the motor nerves. If you take out the motor nerves, a man has no will whatsoever. This fact, as is perhaps well known to you, has been found out after a long series of experiments made with the lower animals. We will take up this question. It is very important to understand this question of Mahat in man, the great principle, the intelligence. This intelligence itself is modified into what we call egoism. And this intelligence is the cause of all the powers in the body. It covers the whole ground: subconsciousness, consciousness, and superconsciousness. What are these three states? The subconscious state we find in animals, which we call instinct. This is almost infallible, which we call but very limited. Instinct rarely fails. An animal almost instinctively knows a poisonous herb from an edible one. But its instinct is limited. As soon as something new comes, it is blind. It works like a machine. Then comes a higher state of knowledge which is fallible and makes mistakes often, but has a larger scope. although it is slower, and this you call a reason. It is much larger than instinct, but instinct is surer than reason. There are more chances of mistakes in reasoning than in instinct. There is a still higher state of mind, the superconscious, which belongs only to yogis, to men who have cultivated it. This is infallible and much more unlimited in its scope than reason. This is the highest state. So we must remember this Mahat is the real cause of all that is here, that which manifests itself in various ways, covers the whole ground of subconscious, conscious and superconscious, the three states in which knowledge exists. Now comes a delicate question, which is being always asked. If a perfect God created the universe, why is there imperfection in it? What we call the universe is what we see, and that is only this little plane of consciousness and reason. Beyond that, we do not see at all. Now, the very question is an impossible one. If I take only a small portion of the mass of something and look at it, it seems to be inharmonious. Naturally, the universe is inharmonious because we make it so. How? What is the reason? What is knowledge? Knowledge is finding the association about things. You go into the street and see a man and say, I know this is a man. But you remember the impressions on your mind and marks on the chitta. You have seen many men and each one has made an impression on your mind. And as you see this man, you refer this to your store and see many similar pictures there. And when you see them, you are satisfied and you put this new one with the rest. What a new impression comes and it has associations in your mind, you are satisfied. And this state of association is called knowledge. Knowledge is therefore pigeonholing one experience with the already existing fund of experience. And this is one of the great proofs of the fact that you cannot have any knowledge until you have already a fund in existence. If you are without experience, as some European philosophers think, and that your mind is a tabula rasa to begin with, you cannot get any knowledge, because the very fact of knowledge is the recognition of the new by means of associations already existing in the mind. There must be a store at hand to which to refer a new impression. Suppose a child is born into this world without such a fund, it would be impossible for him ever to get any knowledge. Therefore, the child must have been previously in a state in which he had a fund, and so knowledge is eternally increasing. Show me a way of getting round this argument. It is a mathematical fact. Some Western schools of philosophy also hold that there cannot be any knowledge without a fund of past knowledge. They have framed the idea that the child is born with knowledge. These Western philosophers say that the impressions with which the child comes into this world are not due to the child's past, but the experiences of his forefathers. It is only hereditary transmission. Soon they will find out that this idea is all wrong. Some German philosophers are now giving hard blows to these heredity ideas. Heredity is very good, but incomplete. It only explains the physical side. How do you explain the environments influencing us? Many causes produce one effect. Environment is one of the modifying effects. Environment is one of the modifying effects. We make our own environment as our past is. So we find the present environment. A drunken man naturally gravitates to the lowest slums of the city.